Meantime, the Trump administration taking action to protect migrant kids from sex traffickers pretending to be their sponsors, letting the agency in charge of unaccompanied children share the sponsor's immigration status with law enforcement, something that it could not do under former President Biden. My next guest investigated this issue last year, finding, quote, officials prioritize speed over safety when releasing unaccompanied children to adult sponsors for political gain due to their failed immigration policies and the crisis at the southern border, putting UCs in harm's way by releasing them to sponsors, some of whom sought to exploit or traffic them. Republican Senator Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, joining us now. Senator Cassidy, thank you very much for being here. This is just such a stunning issue. I'd love for you to just lay out to our audience, how exactly it is that we got here. I mean, how is it that the Biden administration effectively lost track of 320,000 children because of their arrangement with this?
Jackie, thanks for having me. It starts off with having lost total track of the people coming across the border. We all know it, but just to repeat it for context, 10 million people crossed the border illegally, bringing with them children, or some of the children were unaccompanied. Now, there's over 300,000 of those released that they don't know where they are. And the volume was so great, they were just trying to move people out as opposed to placing them in an environment where they knew that they would be safe. So first it started with out of control border, then it started with them being overwhelmed, and then they just started moving kids just to move kids. And some of them, as you quoted in our study, ended up with people that we think put them in harm's way, including human trafficking.
So I want to read just one line from the Office of the Inspector General, because it gets to this issue. Without the ability to monitor the location and status of UACs, ICE is unable to facilitate court appearances and has no assurance UACs are safe from trafficking, exploitation, forced labor, or involvement in criminal activities. With what you're doing now, do you expect that to change? Do you think that these children are actually missing forever, or we might be able to figure out where they are?
300,000 that were missing under Biden, let's not pretend. We may never find out where they are. As the Inspector General pointed out, if you don't know where they are, then you can't ask them to come for a court case to see if they should be here, or if indeed they truly were unaccompanied. And so now they may have just kind of melted into our country. And I think that may have been the strategy all along on the part of the Biden administration. So President Trump is just trying to clean up the mess that there is. Now there's greater ability under the new Trump rules as to find out who we are actually releasing the children to confirm the identity of the people that we're releasing them to. And by that, it means that we can track them and make sure that they do come to that future court date.
It's just so disturbing, though, what you just said, Senator, that there might not be any way to figure out where those kids are. I mean, is there nothing that this new legislation would make available in terms of new information to come to light and try to resolve that? I mean, it just seems mind-boggling that there would be no way to find them.
That was the mess that the Biden administration left us in. And by the way, it's not to say there's no way. Let's face it, we have lots of pictures of lots of people. Sooner or later, one of them turns 15 and 16 and 17 and gets their driver's license. But a lot of states have put restrictions upon accessing those photo files. And so, yes and no. Yes, there could be a way to track and make sure they show up for their court date, to make sure that they are allowed to stay here. But it's really in their interest to melt into our country and not show up. And that's what most folks who are released into our country end up doing.
Very last question. Secretary Noem's visit to Central and South America, obviously some very strong messaging and images coming from her. What can she achieve while she's down there? Obviously, there's a stark contrast to the Biden administration. But what can she come back here in hand with to really drive home the change that Americans are going to see?
So first, let's just start off with the mess that Biden left us. Not only were millions of people crossing the border illegally, lots of fentanyl was too. And a tip of the hat to President Trump. As soon as he told the Mexicans that there might be a 25% tariff, all of a sudden they began cooperating and breaking up the caravans of people coming to our border and going after the cartels. Even the New York Times, kind of mainstream media, admitted that because of the president's threat of tariffs, the president of Mexico began putting renewed vigor into going after the cartels. I'd like to hear what the secretary brings back, is that this is permanent, that even if the tariffs go away, that the Mexican government will remain committed to breaking up those caravans, to going after the cartels, to letting us extradite the criminals, shutting down the fentanyl coming into our country.
Okay. Senator Bill Cassidy, thank you very much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Good to talk to you.
Thank you, Jackie.